Our top story tonight, no water and no heat at Sunset Village Apartments in Flint. Really a heartbreaking situation considering just how cold it's been out there.
And how cold it's going to be. The housing complex is located off of Bradley Avenue and Sunset Drive. Mayor Sheldon Neely says it's unlivable and the city is investigating the property's future. ABC 12's Ann Fred has been looking into how this happened. She joins us now live from City Hall, and Ann, his office is working to get each tenant into new housing.
Yes, and the exact number of people in need of a new place to live is not clear. Flint's mayor says that it isn't their fault. He blamed what he called a neglectful, absent property owner, who he says actually lives out of this state. Missing, broken, and boarded up windows, piles of trash with no dumpster in sight, unplowed parking lots, and now no heat or water at Flint's Sunset Village Apartments. Mayor Sheldon Neely says the water pipes were either cut or stolen.
We first shared with you yesterday the man who owns these apartments also owns the Sunset Village Apartments. That's the complex the city of Flint is investigating to decide if it'll be condemned. Our Ann Perrette spoke with a former tenant at Richfield Court Apartments who's hopeful the city will now look into that complex too.
Sunset Village Apartments is being investigated because they don't have heat, and the city says someone either cut or stole their water pipes, resulting in no water. Now, we first told you yesterday when we showed up to the Richfield Court Apartments, someone there told us they didn't have heat for several days, and it's clear visually that the apartment complex is in the same condition as Sunset Village.
It's not a safe environment. It's nasty.
Alyssa Brewington used to live at Richfield Court Apartments. She's the only person we could find comfortable enough to say something about the conditions. People living there right now appear fearful of speaking up. You can see the dumpsters are overflowing with trash, something Brewington says was an issue long before she moved out. She lived here for just 4 months from June to September 2020. She says she moved out because she didn't feel safe. Twice, Brewington says, her apartment was broken into. She didn't have power after her breaker box sparked, and some of her windows were missing.
I wanted to find somewhere else, but I had no type of funds, big enough for me to find somewhere else.
Flint's mayor Sheldon Neely says they decided to condemn the Sunset Village Apartments until the problems are fixed. The private ownership company now has 10 days from yesterday to get to work. Flint's mayor says they had the same trouble we did trying to track them down. It appears that the property owners want to wash their hands of this crumbling apartment complex. A spokesperson for the owner says that they do plan to fix the problems, but they're also speaking with a couple of potential buyers, admitting that it's too difficult to run the place while living out of state. It's official. We caught a City of Flint employee tacking up the notice to the people who live at the Sunset Village Apartments. With no heat or running water, the complex is being condemned. They have 10 days to move out. It's not clear exactly when the water pipes were cut or stolen. Regardless, the city says the owners are now on the clock to fumigate, clean, and board up the property.
I'll be meeting with the mayor the first part of next week. The mayor and the city has been really helpful. So we're going to do what we can to make that happen, and maybe in getting people there to get the problems fixed if we can.
Patsy Barkley says she's the spokesperson for the owners of the property. The city's property portal website lists them under the company name Flint 770 Investment LLC. Looking at the property, it's clear the issues did not show up overnight, and no water or heat aren't the only reasons prompting the city to condemn the complex. The city's notice also lists missing shingles on the roof, damaged doors and windows, inoperable plumbing, fire damage, and piles of trash with no dumpsters. So I asked Barkley about those issues and the $884,939 water bill they owe the city, which the mayor's office says they last made a partial payment to in December 2017. Barkley says there isn't an explanation for any of it.
We're just going to have to find someone to make sure that that's taken care of. It just has not been maintained well, the property.
So whose fault is that? Barkley says they hired one person to take that on, who she says they've had some issues with, but ultimately admits it's on the owners.
We're in Florida, and there's a long distance, and it's just not easy to be able to do that and effectively be able to manage the property if the owners are not there to make sure that that the property is being maintained and managed well.
And Barkley adds that they do want someone held criminally responsible for vandalizing the water pipes. She says they planned to file a criminal complaint with the Flint Police Department. I also asked about the other complex that they own, Richfield Court Apartments on the east side of Flint. She says that they also plan to fix those problems and potentially sell that property too. Live in Flint tonight, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.
We feel like we're kind of stuck here, and it sucks because nobody's coming to fix anything. Nobody cares.
The living situation at a Mid-Michigan apartment complex is getting worse. You're looking at some giant formations of ice attached to one building at Flint's Richfield Court Apartments.
A neighbor tells us pipes burst in one of the units next door to her. We first told you about issues at this apartment complex after learning the city condemned the property owner's other complex across town. Our Ann Perrette joining us now live from the Richfield Court Apartments. And Ann, is there a plan to get the pipes repaired?
The woman we spoke with says that she's tried to get a hold of the property owners, but the numbers she has either don't work or no one's answered them. You know, last week we mentioned to you, we also tried to call the business office here on the property, and that number is out of order. But the woman also pointed out if she were able to get somebody out here to fix the problem, who would pay for that? It's not her unit.
I can't even believe it, to be honest, because like that, there's a window underneath there.
April Dumas lives in the same building, same floor, just across the stairwell from this top unit, where she says the pipes burst about 5 or 6 days ago. So this is days worth of ice built up from the water seeping through the walls.
We got up because we heard
the sound of water flooding the apartment, which Dumas says has been vacant since October 2020, about 4 months now. Take a look. She recorded this video for us.
The pipes have busted and it is completely flooded.
You can hear that sound and see the damage the water's created. Dumas says the people who live in the unit next door and the one below quickly moved out, fearful the walls, floor, and ceiling will soon cave in.
It frightens me. It scares me because, like, what if the building collapses? I'm really scared. I really am really scared.
She has 3 young kids and says so do the other families on her side of the building. Dumas says her husband could actually repair the pipes, but they don't want to cut off the water for everyone. Plus, she says they're not footing the bill. With the landlord absent, she's not sure if they'll get reimbursed. They haven't been able to get a hold of anyone in the complex's office, even to pay rent. Dumas says it's been vacant since last fall. On top of all of this, she and her husband both lost their jobs due to the pandemic, so moving isn't going to be easy.
We're financially working on getting out of here. Trust me, that is a definite plan.
And you can see behind me the unlivable conditions that we've been sharing with you for the last week, from trash overflowing in the dumpsters to burned out buildings and missing and broken windows. So what's next for this property? Will it also be condemned? Coming up tonight at 6, a spokesperson for the owners and the mayor answer that question. For now, live in Flint, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News. Do you know how it got to that position?
I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know how it got to that position.
Okay.
I don't live in Flint. I'm a Florida resident, so I'm back and forth, but I'm not back and forth that often. So I don't know how it got to that point.
Patsy Barkley says she's a spokesperson for the owners who also live in Florida. She confirms they own both the Sunset Village and Richfield Court Apartments. They're under the names Flint 770 Investment LLC and Mazel Tov Investment 770 LLC on the Flint property portal. The city condemned the Sunset Village Apartments last week for a number of issues. The main one, the mayor says someone stole or cut the complex's water pipes, causing the up to 15 tenants to lose running water and heat. The city's notice also lists missing shingles on the roof, inoperable plumbing, damaged doors and windows, fire damage, and piles of trash. You can find the last 3 issues at Richfield Court Apartments too. So will that property also be condemned? The mayor couldn't provide the exact time frame, but he says the city's building safety team did condemn 2 buildings and says 4 others will be demolished. I asked if the rest of the complex is livable.
We're going to monitor it, but hopefully, as we understand it from our communications with the owner, is that they're trying to sell these businesses and these structures to another business. We'll be able to maintain these properties better.
And we did mention that last week, the spokesperson for the owner saying that they are working to sell both of these apartment complexes, admitting that it's too much for them to handle while living out in Florida. So I asked the mayor about what he's called absentee landlords washing their hands of a property after it's run into the ground. He says that's not how it should be done, but, quote, the profiteers found a loophole. Live in Flint tonight, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.
To think of what it looked like when I lived here and what it looks like now is just sad to me. Yeah. It's very apparent that no one was taking care here.
Bradley says their group reached out to the mayor and police chief to talk about safety concerns recently, but more than a year ago, in January 2020, she sent the first of about a dozen emails to City Hall, including the Blight Department, the mayor, her councilman, and other department heads, asking for attention to this property.
Regarding the dumpsters, the trash, the lawn not being cut. And I would say the Blight Department did what they could to see if they could get those attended to, but it became increasingly worse over time.
Which is why her emails and phone calls didn't stop. But Bradley says the neighborhood didn't wait for action. They've been picking up trash around the property on their own for the last year.
I feel like we've done everything we can to bring attention to the situation. Now it's beyond what we can do.
Bradley says the city should have stepped in a year ago. She can't understand how all of these problems went unnoticed, pointing to the high unpaid water bill. Now, I have been asking the mayor's office for the past 2 weeks why it's taken so long to address these issues. Mayor Sheldon Neely says his administration has cited the property, but when I asked when, how many times, and what for, he was not able to give me an answer, telling me he'd have to get back to me. Now, coming up tonight at 6, the total amount of money that the owner of both this apartment complex and the Richfield Court Apartments owes in that unpaid water bill, and who is actually footing that bill. Coming up again tonight at 6 o'clock. Live in Flint, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News. Well, the mayor says that the city does plan to eventually file a lawsuit against the property owners, but because the water provider has to be paid somehow right now and in the years since that water bill has not been paid, that owed debt, he says, falls on the people in Flint who do pay their water bill monthly.
Sometimes I get the question, why are the water bills so high? What is going on? Well, we have a habitual non-payers.
Mayor Sheldon Neely couldn't share with me how many businesses aren't paying their water bills, but says as of January 2021, the balance owed to the city for water at Sunset Village Apartments is $884,939. It's $282,546 for Richfield Court Apartments. That's nearly $1.2 million. His office says the owner of both complexes last made a partial payment in December 2017.
We have all this outstanding debt that is owed to us from these bad actors, and so it doesn't allow us to really stabilize and then be able to really pass on, a real affordable rate to our residents.
So the mayor says those that actually pay their water bills are, quote, picking up the tab for non-payers like this apartment complex owner.
$800,000 of water usage didn't just happen overnight. So I'm left to clean up this mess. And we're paying very close attention, and we're holding them accountable.
But because it isn't a mess that showed up overnight or even last week, I asked why his administration, which has been in office since November 2019, hasn't taken action against this owner sooner.
It didn't happen here. So you could talk about previous administration, or you could talk about emergency management. equally they failed to residents of this community. We're now, as an evaluation, taking a look at the evaluation. It takes us time to look at things to evaluate and go through our operational audits to see where the failures are before we can act.
And the mayor was quick to point out that the failure to pay the water bills at both of these apartment complexes is not the fault of the people who live there, because he says the water bill payments are included in their rent. So now the question is, where has that money been going? Live in Flint tonight, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.
They have definitely impacted our lives in ways that, like, it's going to take a while to recover from.
80 people living at Richfield Court Apartments on Flint's east side now forced to move. We first told you last night the city of Flint condemned the complex and is taking legal action against the owners.
ABC 12 has been highlighting the unlivable conditions at these apartments all month and fears from people who live there about the months-long neglect.
Ann Perrette spoke to a mother of 3 who is angry and trying to figure out what's next for her family.
When we were here 1 week ago, we showed you the ice structures formed on the outside of this building where April Dumas lives. She says a pipe had burst and she had no one to call. So we reached out to the city and a spokesperson for the owners of the apartment complex. Take a look at what's happened since then. City of Flint maintenance trucks arrived to Richfield Court Apartments around 10 this morning. Mom April Dumas says this is probably the 8th or 9th time they've been on the property since she spoke up on ABC 12 last Thursday.
I think it brought attention to things that needed to be brought to the light, definitely. But I just feel like they're taking the wrong approach to it.
Dumas says the first issue they tackled was the cause of this mess. Those burst pipes flooding 3 floors of Dumas's building.
They said we had until Tuesday to resolve the flooding issue, or they were coming to cut the water off for the whole building.
Dumas says her husband got to work fixing the issue, which wasn't his doing, but he wanted to make sure the water wouldn't be cut off on their side of the building, where she says at least a dozen young kids live, including her 3. She thought they were in the clear until late Wednesday. This notice from the city tacked on their front door. The whole complex is being condemned. The mayor's office says the 80 or so residents have 10 days to move.
I know this place out here, it looks just like a complete train wreck, but we live and we work hard for what we have. Nobody cares about us. They have left us. They have abandoned this place. They have neglected to give us any help since the late last year.
That's the last time Dumas says she saw anyone in the business office. We tried to call the office number. It's been disconnected too. Dumas says the city did come out in December and cleaned up the overflowing dumpsters. The mayor's office says at that point they also ordered demolitions of 4 buildings and condemned 2 others. Dumas wants to know why Mayor Sheldon Neely didn't step in to help the residents then, because the unlivable conditions didn't show up overnight.
We have 3 babies. It breaks my heart because the trauma that's about to come onto them, you know, having to leave their stuff behind until we figure out what we're going to do. And it's not fair to them, but it was never fair to us in the beginning.
But what about the other people at Richfield Court Apartments? Our Ann Perrette joining us now live from there. And Ann, what's being done to help these families?
Well, Angie, it's truly a collaborative effort with just 10 days to get 80 people out of here. Catholic Charities tells me 9 community agencies have come together to get them moved into safer housing. They're going door to door to meet each person and find out exactly what services they need.
We've got the shelters at the table. We've got the city. We've got everybody who plays a role in this community in one way or another. We're all coming together to help these families.
Take a look at this list of Genesee County agencies making it happen. Catholic Charities CEO Vicki Schultz says United Way is the lead. The agency holds a meeting every day to get an update from everyone involved. She says the Flint Housing Commission is doing the initial screening of tenants, filling out the necessary paperwork, and then they can house some people. But Schultz says those they can't are sent to Catholic Charities.
So we got homeless prevention dollars, and this is an emergency situation. So we can help with, if it means getting them into a hotel in the meantime, if they're in an unsafe environment.
The end goal is getting each person into a new, safe home. But where exactly that will be and how long that will take isn't clear, especially because Schultz says some people don't even have identification, their birth certificates or social security cards, which are vital documents for a new home. And then, too, they know each tenant has their own possessions, so Schultz says they're working to find storage and movers.
We didn't hear of any kids in Sunset, but in Richfield, yes, there's children involved. And so that's very sad that it takes all of us in a community to try to find a better living situation for them. And shame on the landlord of all these properties.
And Vicki Schultz says this snowy, cold weather and the ongoing pandemic are only complicating their efforts. She says they are remaining alert about their PPE and maintaining their social distance as they go door to door. But to get on this property earlier this week after that snowfall, they had to get the city out here first to plow these roads. Live in Flint tonight, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.
New tonight, our Ann Perrette shares the ending we've all been waiting for. She joins us now live from the complex in Flint. And April and her family have a new place to live tonight?
Yes, they received their keys yesterday after several days of packing up their belongings. April and her husband filled a U-Haul today and headed to their new home.
We honestly, without the attention from the news crew, I think we'd probably still be there.
We first introduced you to April Dumas 2 weeks ago when she showed us these giant ice formations on the side of her building. She says a pipe had burst, causing that half of the building to crumble. Dumas had no one to call, so we reached out to the city. A week later, they condemned all of the Richfield Court Apartments complex on Flint's east side. All 80 residents were given just 10 days to find a new place to live. To make that possible, multiple community agencies have been working overtime.
We haven't had to come out of pocket of anything so far, you know, and we've been just so blessed that everything for like the first month has been taken care of, and it really gives us a chance to get on our feet and in a more stable environment.
April says she's most looking forward to feeling safe in her new home. You can see these bullet holes sprayed across her old apartment. April says the gunfire barely missed her kids' bedrooms.
Knowing that my kids are gonna be in a safe, quiet environment, and you know, we have a patio, I'll feel safe with bringing them outside, and you know, just getting away from. Obviously, just, you know, you want to wake up to like a nice, clean view and not wake up and see trash. So, yeah, we're pretty excited.
And April says this move comes at the perfect time because another pipe just burst in their apartment building. I asked her what she wants to see this land become. She says that she wants this entire property to be demolished and that it should just become something entirely different than a place for people to live. Live in Flint tonight, I'm Ann Perrette, ABC 12 News.